Hey there, Carmen, Kevin, and Dr. Amy Kenny. I see that you're logging on and getting ready. I just wanted to remind you when you share your screen to make sure you click on those couple buttons that allow audio and enhanced video if you haven't already. That will allow any video or audio clips that you have embedded in your presentation to be seen and heard by your audience. We had a problem with that in person earlier, so I just thought I'd note that so that you can avoid that potential pitfall. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to Cultivating a Culture of Access at Georgetown. If you're joining us online, please place your questions in the Q&A panel rather than the chat panel, as chat will not be moderated. For attendees here in the room, please hold your questions until the end of the session. We'll try to get to as many as possible. If we don't get to them, some presenters will join the chat and try to answer questions individually. This session will explore how Georgetown University's Disability Employee Resource Group, or ERG, leverages interdependent leadership to promote accessibility, inclusion, and belonging across campus. Presenters will share strategies, highlight key projects, and showcase lessons learned so you all come away with practical insights into creating meaningful partnerships, empowering diverse voices, and sustaining accessible cultural events in your organizations to cultivate a thriving, inclusive environment. Please help me give a warm welcome to our guests from Georgetown. Carmen Danley, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Program Manager for the School of Foreign Service. Amy Kenny, Director of the Disability Cultural Center, and Kevin Andrews, the Electronic Information Technology Accessibility Coordinator in the University Information Services. Welcome, everyone.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much to Arizona State University for organizing this important Accessibility Awareness Day conference and for inviting us to share our work with you. My name is Carmen Danley. I'll share that I'm a biracial Black woman with big curly hair, wearing a green sweater today. And it's a privilege to be here with you all to discuss the importance of cultivating a culture of access, a topic that is essential to fostering inclusion and equity on every campus. As we begin on our first slide, there's a view of the beautiful view of Georgetown University from the Potomac River, which is a perspective that reminds us of our responsibility to make it accessible to everyone that comes through its doors. So we hope today that you'll walk away, as it was stated, with some actionable steps for your organization, whether that's building an ERG or just expanding some of your initiatives. So on our next slide, we have my phenomenal co-facilitators who I'll allow to introduce themselves. Dr. Amy Kenny, would you like to start?
This is Amy. Thanks, Carmen. My name is Amy Kenny. I use she, her pronouns, and I am the director of our Disability Cultural Center at Georgetown. I am a disabled white Australian woman. Today, I am wearing green and sitting in front of a teal background. And on the slide, my photo shows me sitting in my wonderful mobility scooter that is bedazzled with a W for Wonder Woman, so you remember who you're talking to. And I'll pass back to Carmen.
Thanks, Amy. So yes, I'm the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Program Manager on the School of Foreign Service at Georgetown, and I use she, her pronouns. In my picture, you will see me again in my favorite color, green, with my big curly hair again, and some pearls. I'll pass it over to Kevin.
Hey, excuse me. This is Kevin Andrews. I use he, him. I'm the Electronic Information Technology Accessibility Coordinator, which is a mouthful, in University Information Services, which is our central IT department. I'm a blind Caucasian male, short brown hair, beard. Today I'm wearing a purple t-shirt here in the office. The background, I assume, looks pretty institutional looking, but I believe this is on the slide. The headshot is standing at the sort of front lawn in my apartment building in a sweater. It was much cooler out then than it is today, weather-wise, in terms of temperature. So thank you. Might as well go to the next slide. So we propose a question to you all, and I think it's best, yeah, if people want to respond in the chat, feel free for access, no pressure, of course. But we're kind of curious. Oh, and on this slide, we have a picture of cherry blossoms and a water fountain. DC is famous for the cherry blossom sort of growth that happens every spring. So the question we have for you all today is, are you part of a disability employee resource group or ERG? Just something to think about, no pressure to respond, but if you can, feel free to drop it in the chat. I think we'll see it there. Amy, want to take it away?
This is Amy. Thanks, Kevin. So we start with that question because we want for you to get to think about what it could mean for you and your campus to be part of a disability employee resource group. And you might be wondering, well, why is a disability ERG needed? And so on the next slide, we have a number of reasons that we have come up with of why it's important to have a disability ERG. And we actually use these in the formation of our ERG when we were advocating for this to take place and be resourced on our campus. So we know that studies show that disabled employees are highly motivated to work, friendly to customers and colleagues, and contribute to a collaborative work environment. A lot of studies share how disabled employees are highly collaborative and want to create an interdependent working environment for one another. And so these are great attributes to have as part of an ERG. And on this slide, we have an image of 4 colleagues on a Zoom call, and that's exactly how our ERG holds a lot of our meetings every month for access and also to create community with one another. We also know that when compared to non-disabled colleagues, disabled colleagues are more loyal to their employer, more likely to experiment and creatively problem solve, more likely to perform more consistently, and more consistent in attendance. And we used these to advocate for our ERG because we think that sometimes there's a lot of misconceptions out there about disabled colleagues such as ourselves. And we wanted to make sure that our employer knew that we are creating this disability ERG because this is part of retention and part of making sure that our disabled employees are supported at Georgetown. But much beyond that, we also know that we want to create an environment where we all get to thrive. And unfortunately, that's not the case for many disabled folks across the country. And so on the next slide, we have a few more statistics and studies that we're citing here, but we know that in the US, disabled people earn less than non-disabled people. 22% of disabled people have extremely low incomes as defined by HUD, the Housing and Urban Development. In 2021, the median income for households with at least one disabled member was less than 60% of the median income for households without a disabled member. So that's a huge wage gap. And so we know that non-disabled folks earning more than disabled folks across the nation is something that we would hope to combat with a disability ERG. This slide shows one of our gatherings. You can see someone sitting in a wheelchair on the left with a group of folks around tables on the right outside on our campus. We also know that in the US, disabled people often have unmet healthcare needs. 1 in 4 disabled adults in the US have an unmet healthcare need in the past year due to cost. And so this is something that through benefits and through employment that we're hoping that the disability ERG can combat in our community. In the US, disabled people are more likely to be unemployed and underemployed. 21.3% of disabled people are employed compared to 65.4% of non-disabled people. And that's really a lot of numbers, but it's not good, is really the conclusion here. We want to make sure that we're providing opportunities for disabled colleagues to not only be hired, but then to retain these disabled colleagues and make sure that we have opportunities to advance and have professional development and thrive in our workplace. In the US, disabled people are not protected by minimum wage laws and feel more isolated at work. And so all of these are supported by a number of different studies, and we wanted to share that outright to demonstrate what we are hoping to change in the culture and in our community through our disability ERG. We know that we want our workplace to be somewhere where we all get to thrive, and we want to create co-flourishing through our interdependent leadership model at our disability ERG. And part of doing that is also educating administrators and other colleagues of some of the barriers that disabled colleagues face at work. So with that, I'll pass over to Carmen.
Thanks, Amy. This is Carmen. My Zoom did not want to unmute. So now that we've covered why disability ERGs are essential to foster inclusive workplaces, I'd like to share the mission of our ERG. So our mission is pretty straightforward yet powerful. It's to cultivate a community support system, provide professional development and resources, and create meaningful opportunities for disabled employees. At Georgetown, we recognize that building a culture of access starts with ensuring that our employees feel supported and equipped to thrive. This mission serves as our anchor, helping us to stay focused on initiatives that not only promote accessibility, but also empower our community through growth, connection, and shared experiences, shared purpose. So I'll turn it over to Kevin to dive into the history of our disability ERG.
Cool. Thanks, Carmen. So on this slide, we have a picture of some of our members sitting at a table. And so the history of the ERG really started when we really recognized there was a tremendous need for community among those who identify as disabled at Georgetown. A lot of people are at different places in their the way they identify. Whether they are open about it or not. Sometimes disability identity is very, it's very private. But we really wanted to foster something and set something up where people could feel like they could come as they are and feel safe and psychological safety, which we'll touch on a little bit later. We also recognized there were some serious knowledge gaps around disability across the institution, a real lack of visibility for disabled staff by leadership, and also a lack of professional opportunities for disabled staff. So kind of thinking about professional development. So right about 2 years ago at this time, actually November and into December of 2022, we started to develop and really hone our, button up our charter. And then the leadership committee and the ERG was formed through a democratic process. We kind of voted on what we wanted and who was going to, assume which roles. And it was formed through these strategic partnerships where we were already facilitating access and inclusion around the university. So through strategic partnerships and a lot of these collaborative discussions. And I will hand it over to Amy, I believe. Is that right? I'm sorry, Carmen.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Kevin. This is Carmen. So I'll go over some of our key projects. So on this slide, you'll see a picture of some of our employees in the ERG at an event that we had. I believe it was a tabling event for ERGs, as well as just overall staff engagement that we participated in. And then I believe the second picture is a picture from our graduation celebration for our students with disabilities. So for our key projects, our Disability ERG has led a couple of different impactful projects. And while these are some of them, not all of them, and our initiatives illustrate the core work that we do here at Georgetown. So one key focus is establishing a trusted ERG community where members feel genuinely supported and empowered to share their experiences and drive positive change. So building this trust has been a foundational aspect to our growth and success. And we've also really been trying to develop resources to enhance awareness around disability and accessibility, which is aimed at fostering a more informed and inclusive campus culture. So think about some of those things that Amy talked about earlier with the statistics of who is disabled and what does that look like actually on our campus, and just information that people need to be able to understand the community better. Another significant project is our collaboration with Georgetown's leadership. We have regular conversations that we advocate for increased accessibility and inclusion, being proactively thought about and not reactively thought about, and helping to ensure that disability awareness is a priority in our decision-making for the university. We also have a partnership with our Human Resources Department, and that has led to a wonderful creation of a training that is called Thriving at Georgetown. That's going to be helping to equip employees with strategies to create and sustain inclusive practices. And so they've been having us coming to our meetings to get information about what are some of the experiences that people with disabilities have at Georgetown, and in what ways we want people to be able to learn about that and to change their actions or just overall change their awareness for employees who are at Georgetown. And so lastly, we have here is innovating an inclusive and accessible visual identity for our ERG. This is something that we are super excited about and are just in the beginning stages of. So we're working with our visual identity team to make sure that our branding is accessible and that it is innovative. So we're looking at how can we, through digital media, as well as those things that will be printed, how can we have different modes of that so that it can be something that is reached and accessible to all different audiences. So next I'll go over some of our key events. So in our first year, the Disability ERG really focused on fostering a supportive community. And so that happened through our monthly community meetings. So we hold these on Zoom on the first Friday of each month. And these meetings offer members a dedicated space to connect and to share experiences and to build trust. And so I really love these meetings. We start off with one-word check-ins and one-word check-outs. And whether we have action items on the agenda for that particular day or different guests, I always feel that the community is able to really check in with one another and find ways that we can support each other, big or small. And we also hold our monthly leadership ERG meetings as well, so we can talk about some of those decision-making processes before we meet with the larger group. And so to build connections across campus, we're also engaging with Georgetown's leadership to drive institutional change. For instance, we invited Georgetown's Vice President for Diversity, Equity, Inclusion to join us in discussing ways to enhance the experience and retention of disabled employees. She also was able to go over the results of the campus climate survey and focused on the people who responded as people with disabilities, as well as looking at how we can collect that information differently. What questions are we asking? How can we change that for the next go round so that it's not solely based on if you're checking a box, but it's looking at all the different aspects of disability and what that experience is lived out on campus to get a better reality of what that truly looks like. So some other events here, we have a cross disability solidarity workshop. That was a really great event that we had that went over the history of the disability movement, of disability history, to think about the different policies that came about and where we are today, to groups for like building ERGs, what movements happened within the whole time, so we understand that. And then lastly, we're hosting an inter-ERG workshop called Creating Safer Spaces. So this workshop highlights best practices for cultivating inclusive environments across the campus, ensuring that each ERG feels equipped to support its members. So all of these events are just instrumental to building a strong and inclusive community, and we're excited to host more in the future. So turning it over to Amy.
This is Amy. Thanks, Carmen. So a lot of the events that Carmen mentioned came out of the goals that we set for our Disability ERG collaboratively. And this was a lengthy process of us inviting every member to share in a Google Doc, in a meeting, in multimodal ways, what they wanted from the ERG. And as you can imagine, with large groups of humans, there's lots of different perspectives and lots of different needs that were shared in these sessions. And then from all of that, a leadership group that the three of us are on and about 10 other colleagues participate in, who have been nominated by all of our members and through a voting system. That leadership committee got together and really synthesized all of the goals and tried to think about what was being asked for underneath any of the requests as well, and then scaffold that over the next 5 years. So the Disability ERG Leadership Group came up with a 5-year plan of our strategic goals and initiatives, and these were the ones that we collaboratively decided on. And just want to share the behind the scenes of that process, that collaboration and interdependence takes time and takes patience. And so we try to really practice creating a culture of access with one another. We have community covenants that we use in our sessions together that have been co-developed, things such as announce who's speaking before talking for access, or we welcome whatever way you need or want to participate in the session today, whether that's camera on, camera off, in the chat, on your mic, signing, stimming, pacing, dancing, standing, and really being flexible with one another's access needs so that we can put into practice what we are calling the rest of the university to do as well. And so the goals that we developed are to foster support circles and community building. There's definitely a sense of isolation or of othering that disabled employees feel in workplaces. And a lot of that has to do with those statistics that we shared earlier. And as Kevin mentioned earlier, there's a politics of disclosure. Who discloses and to whom and when is very political, and some folks are not safe or not comfortable to do so in a public setting. And so we try to allow for folks to participate in lots of different ways to create a culture of access and have support circles and community building with different on-ramps. So we've had an ASL open mic night, a streaming party, we've had workshops together, we've had sessions where we invite leaders and administrators from the university that Carmen was mentioning, our chief diversity officer and vice presidents from the university to come and talk with us. And these sessions are just as much for them as they are for us. We get to share our experiences and our questions about disability experience and benefits, or what it's like to be the only publicly disabled person in your office or in your department, and how to navigate that. And through that, we've been able to offer professional development opportunities for folks in our ERG to offer resources, experiences to get to inform leadership and administration of our experiences that they may or may not be aware of. And we hope to continue to offer professional development opportunities for our ERG members by invitation. So, however people want to participate, we want for them to have their professional development opportunities met. We also have a goal of increasing awareness about disability across campus. So there's a lot of ignorance about disability just broadly. And I think that one of the wonderful gifts of the ERG is that we get to educate folks in community. So it doesn't fall just to one individual. We get to do it collaboratively. And that allows for us to be emboldened in our education and increasing awareness across the university. And things like this human resources project that we're collaborating on to create a Thriving at Georgetown course around accessibility. That's a really great opportunity to share some of our experiences and stories anonymously, and for the power dynamics and to not be as much at play in that sharing. And so trying to promote increasing awareness about disability as an intersectional identity and part of our community already. We have colleagues in our ERG who are on every corner of campus, and we have lots of different roles represented in the ERG across campus, and we have a lot of different disability lived experiences and a lot of different ways of understanding our disability experiences and body minds. And so wanting to make sure that when we're increasing awareness, we're doing that in a really collaborative way and doing that in a really capacious way, inviting folks to think more broadly about disability. We're also promoting disability culture and events. We are much more than our access needs. Access is crucial and vital to our survival. But of course, we don't want to just survive, we want to thrive. And so we're promoting disability culture and inviting colleagues to experience and learn more about disability culture through different cultural events. One of our events is on this slide, which is our retreat that our disability ERG did this past spring. And there's some of our retreat members there. We all spent a day on retreat together to build community and get to know one another in more connected ways than we sometimes get to in our offices or in our roles. And even this photo represents how we are cultivating a culture of access together, because not everyone wants to be part of a photo or can be a part of a photo due to the politics of disclosure. So really acknowledging that and allowing for opportunities for our members to engage in whatever way is most accessible to them. And then finally, we hope to advocate for more opportunities for representation for disabled employees. And we do this often by being in dialogue with administration and leadership and sharing some of the opportunities that we wish there were for disabled employees. And we hope to continue in our 5-year plan in that advocacy to make sure that we continue to hire disabled folks and really support one another in whatever office or field or subject matter expertise we have represented in our ERG. And so some of us might be wondering, well, all of that seems amazing, and I wish I was your colleague, and we wish that too. But how can I create a disability ERG wherever I am? Or what are some of the tips and tools that we could offer to do this in whatever sphere of influence you find yourself in? And so to answer those questions, I'll pass us over to Kevin.
Thanks, Amy. On this slide, we've got a picture of 3 employees sitting at a desk. Don't know who they are, but they're sitting at a desk. So yeah, we've given you all a lot of information in the last 25 minutes. So some things to think about if you want to start a disability ERG at your workplace. So some things to think about. Intersectionality is key. Amy mentioned intersectionality earlier. And I think it's important to just clarify what that is. So really thinking about the different spaces and communities we may all occupy and different ways in which we may all identify. For example, I'm a Caucasian male, also disabled. So there's different levels of privilege kind of interwoven there. So just some things to think about here. Disability status, ways in which staff choose to identify, other groups or communities staff may occupy, especially considering something like a disabled person of color, really considering all of those. The next is really you want to implement guidelines, right? So I kind of mentioned this earlier. Psychological safety is one. So people really need to be able to feel comfortable, and building and developing trust in these spaces takes time. But feeling like they can open up, can share, that's the only way really to be able to kind of build these communities, especially when we all come from different lived experience. You know, people have experienced some pretty extreme microaggressions in the workplace by managers and other colleagues. So it's just really something to keep in mind, and we all come at this with some different lived experiences. Respectful language, also normalize communicating accessibility needs, which we kind of talked about. So, you know, people should be able to feel comfortable saying what they need in order to be able to participate. If they can't do that, then the whole thing falls apart. Communicating accessibility needs. So for example, example camera optional, and then also make sure that they are clear. And I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong notes. Communicating the accessibility needs. Yeah, so things like that. And then making sure that those guidelines are clear and understandable for everyone. Everyone's on the same page. Next, you want to be firm in your convictions, right? So stick to your guns, stick to your values, but also be open to growing, iterate, accept feedback, and then challenge your own biases and the status quo wherever you are at your workplace. Just because that's the way it's been done for the last 15, 20 years, it might not be the best way to do it. So we've run into that a lot at our institution. I'm sure that there are people attending this panel or this webinar who have also experienced that. And then finally, find partners in those already doing the work. So like I kind of mentioned earlier, people who are already facilitating access. Maybe it's in ways you haven't considered before, or maybe they're open to learning wherever they are on their disability identity journey. So who are already doing the work, even if accessibility or disability, it's not in anyone's official title. Titles are a big deal at universities, but just because it's not in their title, they should be welcome as well. Yeah, that's all we have other than time for Q&A. So thank you. If there are questions, we'll take.
Okay, I'm heard. Wow. I do see, let me see Q&A. There was one question that came in over Zoom, so I'm going to go ahead and read it right now. Have you considered hosting an accessibility expedition? We do one each semester to go through the physical campus to look for accessibility/usability issues and explain requirements to participants. We share what we discover with facilities to get things fixed.
I'll take it. We haven't, I don't think we've considered that. I don't know what the potential legal implications might be. Just council might get a little nervous about that. I like the idea though. I don't know what you two think, but I don't think it's come up.
This is Amy. Yeah, thank you for that suggestion. I think that we have had a lot of discussions in our disability ERG about wanting to make sure that we're providing a space of community building and support and not taking on the roles and responsibilities of everything related to disability across campus. Now, all of us in this presentation do have roles in the university related to disability, accessibility, and diversity. And many of our colleagues in the disability ERG, that's not true of. They are involved in a role on campus that isn't connected to disability, diversity, or accessibility in their title or in any of the scope of their work. And I think why that matters is because we want to make sure that the work of accessibility is something that we're inviting everyone to do and doesn't always just fall to the disabled colleague in the room. And that's something that in our ERG, we've spoken a lot about wanting this to be a space where disabled colleagues can share their experiences, sometimes their pain, sometimes their frustrations, their joys, their questions, and that be a space to support one another through and in that together.
Awesome. Thank you for addressing that. I know the other comment, there were two other comments for that same question is we do not promise we can get things fixed in a timely manner, and it's about building awareness and finding what we can. And also, I love your model. Okay, does anybody have any other questions over Zoom or in the room? Anyone? Okay, seeing none, thank you, Carmen, Amy, and Kevin. We'll begin the next session, how to read a VPAT, parentheses, ACR, in just a few minutes. So please join us here in the alumni room at the Memorial Union on ASU's Tempe campus, or virtually on Zoom at the same link used for this session. And if you get a chance, please go to the schedule page on the conference website and use the QR code to find our conference survey. We appreciate any feedback on how to make this event even better. Thank you so much, everybody, and we'll begin the next session soon.